Hey friends, it's Rachel here, and today I'm sharing a new art journal process video, and this is my first process video that I've uploaded here. It's not my first art journal page, it's just the first one that I have videoed or filmed from start to finish, so I thought that I would share it here on YouTube. So I'm using the Dina Wakley Media Journal for this art journal spread, and this is actually the first page in this journal. As you can see by all the stuff around, like the top and the right hand side of the journal, you can see it's not my first completed page from the journal, but I wanted to actually complete the first page, so I thought I'd just film it and just share it along with you. So the little wildflowers that are down the bottom of the page are actually from a Darkroom door stencil, and I did that a while ago, so that's all dry, and it was actually put through with some texture paste that I'd coloured up using some paint. So it's all sort of grey coloured and it's all raised on the page. And I'd already had some gesso that I'd dried on the top of the page. So it was already dry, and as you can see, I didn't cover the entire page. It was just, the top part of that above the wildflowers. So what I'm doing now is I'm just adding some colour to the page, and I've used some Dina Wakley Media paints and just squeezed some of those out on my little palette and then spritzed it with water just to water them down. And now I'm just using a paintbrush and painting over the page, and you can see that the paint is resisting the gesso. So that gesso, even though it is like a lighter shade of the paint, so it is taking some of the colour, but it's not taking all of the colour. So I get this sort of interesting texture layer, which just adds a little bit of extra, interest to the page. And now I'm just getting out some Darkroom door stencils. These are the Butterflies stencil. They're the small version. And I've just laid them onto the page, and I've just got a new colour. This is the Sedona colour of Dina Wakley Media paint, and I'm just painting over the butterflies. And I've also spritzed water onto that paint, so it's a little bit diluted as well with the water. And I'm just running the paintbrush over the top. And I'm trying to sort of be careful, but to not get some of the paint underneath the stencil, but because the paint is a little bit watery because I added that water, it may still seep underneath the stencil. But, the good thing about art journaling, it's never meant to be really perfect. And as you can see, there was some waterage, seepage underneath the stencil. So I'm just patting it dry a little bit, just taking up that excess. Rather than using a paper towel, I'm just using an old book page. And the reason I do that is it just adds, a little bit of paint onto the book page, and I can turn that into a collage piece of paper for another project. So I'm using the other butterfly stencil now and just repeating that. And I'm trying to be a little bit more careful or not using too much paint on this side, so I get a little bit less seepage underneath. But I'm actually not really that concerned because I quite like how that butterfly isn't a complete image. It sort of like goes in and out of, being in like the whole image. And again, I've even got more seepage underneath that stencil. Oh well. So just get another book page and mop up some of that excess, and I've nearly lost my entire butterfly. But that doesn't matter. As you'll see as the video goes on, I resurrect them so you can actually see them incomplete or complete. So now I'm just using some of that old book page that I used to mop up that excess paint, and I'm just sort of seeing where I want to put some onto a page. I enjoy putting, collage pieces or old book pages onto a page. It just adds that little bit of extra text and just those extra little details and, some collage sort of stuff. I love all that sort of vintage thing. And I also like things in threes or, odd sort of numbers. And I'm just using some gel medium now to adhere that down. So I just use my fingers. You can use a paintbrush if you want, but I just use fingers at the bottom of that to put the gel medium onto the page. And then I just use a little bit of gel medium over the top to make sure that it's securely stuck to the page. And I will also do it around the edges, just to make sure that all the little pieces, all the little edges and pieces are actually stuck down to the page. And it doesn't take too long to dry. but before I go on to the next steps, I do like to make sure that it is dry. Otherwise, things get a bit slippery, as you can see. So now I'm just going to add some scribble sticks, or use some scribble sticks, just to add a little bit of an edge to those book pages that I've adhered down with the gel medium. And I'm just using the same colour, like the same paint colour. I was using Sedona paint colour before, and so I just used the Sedona scribble stick just around those book pages. And now I'm using one of the blue, I think it's the marine colour, just down the sides of those wildflowers. And then now I'm using the olive green one on the other side of the flowers. And the scribble sticks, they're a pure pigment sticks, and they're reactive with water. So I'm just using a paintbrush now that's just had a little bit of water put with it, just to blend that colour out. So it means that I can use a little bit of that scribble stick just to blend that colour so it's a little bit shaded and makes it a little bit softer, rather than just having like a hard stick line. And the good thing about scribble sticks that I love is that you can either have that hard line if you just want to draw with it, or like what I'm doing here, just using a water brush and just softening out that colour, and it just adds that nice little extra shaded touch. And in the case of me adding the green here, just adding an extra colour into the page. And just going over here with a few more colours just to shade up those flowers a little bit extra, or a little bit darker. And I sit here and I just play with these a little bit, more and more, because obviously when I draw them, it's coming out with the darker shade, and then I'm diluting it down with the water, and then I'm deciding I need it to be darker again. So I'm sort of going backwards and forwards a bit, but I really do like that sort of shaded look. And I'm not being too careful with where I go. And just remember that these flowers are raised as well, because they were made with texture paste. So some of that scribble stick can't get right in, so that's where the paintbrush really does help, because it means then that I can just push that brush right into that flower just to get that colour right into the edges of where the texture paste is. And I'm just adding some extra colour to those book pages. Now it's sort of got like a nice yellowy, orangey look. And now it's time to get into some stamping, and I'm using the French script texture stamp by Darkroom. It's one of my favourites, which I use on most projects that I do. So it's just that really nice sort of small script, and it just continues on that, like the book page sort of feel, and it just adds that nice little vintage script to the page. And I've just stamped a couple of areas just with the archival jet black ink. And now I've chosen another different texture stamp. This one's the splatter texture stamp. And instead of doing this one in black, I'm doing this one in the leaf green. So it'll just bring out that extra, the green colour that I used in the scribble stick. It'll now add or introduce more green around the page in that similar shade. And the splatter stamp is really cool because it just adds splatter without, getting ink everywhere. So and now I'm getting back onto the butterflies, and I've brought back the stencils, and I'm just laying them back over where they were originally, and I'm now going to trace around them with a pen. And I'm using one of the Copic liner pens. I've had this one for a while. I haven't used it a lot, but it seems to draw on anything, so I really like it, because it means then that I can use it for art journaling. And it's permanent. So you can see there I've just lifted up the butterfly stencil just to make sure that everything's working and going through okay. And what I'm doing is I'm just tracing around the butterfly stencil in all of those little holes and open spaces, just to outline the butterfly. And then that'll just give that its outside shape. And then I'll go back in and I will then colour in some other sections, and that'll just give that a bit of definition, so you can actually see that it's a butterfly, and sort of bring it more to the forefront rather than having it in the background like it was with that painted colour. But the good thing is it's already got the colour behind it, and because some of the paint sort of went a bit everywhere when it sort of went under the stencil as well, it means it'll have the real background, which is that sort of aqua-y, greeny colour or bluey colour, and then it's got that Sedona colour, so it'll have both colours showing through for the butterfly. So I'm just, going through, I'm getting into every single little dot or whole of the butterflies, and just tracing around those little antennae or antlers or whatever they're actually called, and just going around the edge of the butterfly now. And I'll just repeat this process for the other butterfly up the top as well, until they've both got that full definition. And so while I'm just, colouring that butterfly in or outlining that butterfly, I might as well give you a little bit of a background in what I've done with art journaling. This is obviously not my first page, but it's the first one that I'm sharing the full process of. But I've been art journaling for a long time, and even before it sort of even had a bit of a name, I've always sort of kept a journal, and a creative journal sometimes. Not as creative as this one, but back when I was a teenager, I used to just stick all sorts of pieces in scrapbooks and diaries and things like that, and who knew that it was sort of a form of art journaling. And I've still got quite a lot of those ones today, or still here in my studio. And I've also got all my visual diaries that I kept when I was at university. As I was studying a visual arts degree, and I needed to keep visual diaries, so of the process of our artworks and why we chose to do certain things. So I've got all of those as well. But this type of art journaling that I'm doing is really just for fun. So it's really just therapy, just relaxing. And I'm sure a lot of us, I know that a lot of us are doing a lot of art journaling these days for that same reason, just to relax and do something creative. So there's no real agenda. It's just to get a bit of ink on our hands or a bit of paint, and whether it's stamps or stencils or whatever the medium is that you enjoy using, and just getting a journal or making your own journal. There's so many different ways you can do it, and just having a bit of fun. And it's also good just to try out new techniques, or to try out different art materials and craft materials that you may not have used before, and just to allow yourself just to sit and play. So rather than thinking that everything's got to be perfect, letting it go. I mean, you can see here in this art journal page, there's a few things that you could say I messed it up basically with the paint going under stencils, or randomly stamping everywhere, but that's the part of the fun. That's what I consider to be, oh well, that's what happened, move on, and make it work in your artwork. And I think that's what classes it really as a unique piece, and that's what mixed media is all about as well, is just throwing some things together and just layering things up and trying new ideas and techniques, and running with it to create a finished piece of art or expression in your journal. So this journal here is the Dina Wakeley Media Journal, and I've really enjoyed using this journal because it's got all those different substrates in there. So the one that I'm working on now, this first page, is that cotton rag watercolor paper, and it's really, really absorbent. So anything that you, like anytime you add, water to it, or paint, or, stains, or any sort of ink, it's really going to soak that up. And at first I was like, oh wow, it's really, really probably too absorbent. But then once I started really working with it, I've found out how I enjoyed working with it and what really works well. And I love using the gesso to create that sort of resist as well on these sorts of pages. So I'm really enjoying working in the journal. I love the burlap pages in the journal, and the craft pages, and also the canvas. So it's a really fun journal to use. If you've not picked up one of these yet, I recommend that you do, just to have a bit of a play, because it really it just gives you a chance to try different things. So you can see now I'm using some Scribble Sticks again, and I'm adding some more colour and shading to those butterflies. So I've just made one sort of like a greeny colour, and then the other one's got that Sedona nice warm orange colour, and then just adding some water around the edges, because I just went around the edges with a little bit of the black Scribble Stick, and it'll just give that butterfly a little bit of a shading around the edges, and just adding some more to those flowers, because I just love doing it to those flowers, and then just going again with that water brush just to shade that out. So this one's actually just that darker black colour, so it just gives that extra the shading on one side of those flowers. And once I've done that, I'm ready to add some words. So what I've got here are the collage words from Dina Wakley, and these are like little tissue or pieces of tissue with printed words and quotes, and I mean there's so much in this packet that that you'll be using them for a long time. But so I've just chosen these ones which say be present, be strong, be you. And I think that's a really good page, or words to start off the front page of this book. So it just reminds me just to be present in the moment. Try not to worry about anything else when I'm doing any sort of art journaling. Just let things go and enjoy the process as I'm doing it. Be strong, meaning just to keep the strength going and just to stick with what I believe in, and also be you. And that's always a nice sort of reminder just to keep being who we really are. So there's my finished page, and here's just a couple of close-ups so you can see, and you can see that texture in that paper and how it just adds that extra element. And if you can touch and feel this in real life, you'd feel all that texture in the paper and also in that texture paste. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this process video. I hope to share more with you as I continue to film more as I go. And if you'd like to see more of my work, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also check out our website. My website is rachelgreg.com and darkroomdoor.com. Thanks for watching.